There are places on this earth that no passport can open, no press credential, no government clearance short of the absolute highest levels of classified access. Places where the wrong fingerprint on the wrong door triggers a response that most people will never see coming. Places where the secrets stored inside are so significant, so sensitive, so consequential to the balance of global power, that the entire architecture of the facility exists for one purpose, and one purpose only: to make sure you never get in. Today we are going inside those places. Not with a camera crew, not with a tour guide, but with the knowledge that has been pieced together through declassified documents, veteran testimony, architectural analysis, and decades of investigative journalism that has slowly, carefully, pulled back the edge of the curtain just enough to see what is behind it. We are talking about the most secure military vaults on the planet. The rooms, the bunkers, the underground fortresses, and the reinforced chambers where governments store the things they cannot afford to lose, and absolutely cannot afford to let the wrong hands touch. Some hold nuclear weapons. Some hold intelligence archives that could reshape world history if they were ever released. Some hold the emergency continuity systems that are designed to keep civilization functioning after everything else has failed. And here is what makes this story worth telling. It is not just about locks and walls and armed guards. It is about the philosophy behind security at this level. The thinking, the paranoia, the engineering, the psychology. Because when a government decides that something must be protected at all costs, the lengths they will go to are genuinely extraordinary. If you have ever wondered what lies behind the doors that the public is never allowed to approach, stay with us, because today we are going as deep as anyone outside the uniform has ever been allowed to go. Before we start, take 5 seconds right now to subscribe. Over 98% of people who watch videos like this never hit that button. It costs you absolutely nothing, but it means we can keep going deeper on stories like this one. Subscribe now, and let us begin. Fort Knox, the legend and the reality. Most people have heard the name. Fort Knox. It is practically a synonym for impenetrability. When someone says something is locked up like Fort Knox, everyone in the room knows exactly what they mean. But here is what most people do not know. The reality of Fort Knox is significantly more intense than the legend, and the legend is already pretty intense. The United States Bullion Depository at Fort Knox, Kentucky, is a 2-story building constructed from granite, steel, and concrete. It sits on the grounds of a United States Army post, which means the first layer of security is a military installation with its own perimeter, its own armed security forces, and its own infrastructure. Getting onto the base without authorization is already a serious federal offense. Getting anywhere near the vault building itself is something else entirely. The exterior walls of the depository are made from granite lined with concrete. The roof is constructed from bomb-proof materials. The vault door itself is reported to weigh more than 20 tons. It is made from torch and drill-resistant material. The combination to open it is split among multiple members of the staff, and no single individual knows the complete combination. This is by design. This is called a split knowledge protocol. It means that even under extreme duress, even if one person is compromised, the vault cannot be opened by that person alone. You need multiple authorized personnel, each contributing their portion of the combination, to open that door. It is the same principle used for nuclear launch authority, and it is applied here with the same seriousness. The guards at Fort Knox are not private security. They are United States Army soldiers. The base has its own armor unit, its own helicopter support, and its own rapid response capability. There are minefields on the property. There are multiple layers of electronic surveillance. There are motion sensors, cameras, pressure sensors, and systems that have never been publicly described in detail, because describing them in detail would undermine their purpose. Inside the vault are roughly 4,600 tons of gold bullion. That is somewhere in the range of $200 billion worth of gold stored in a single location. Bars, stacked, in a facility that has not had a full independent audit in decades. The last time Congress was allowed inside for any kind of inspection was in 1974. That visit was brief, partial, and carefully controlled. No complete independent verification of the full holdings has been conducted in the modern era using modern methods, a fact that has generated significant debate and conspiracy theories over the years. But here is what we do know for certain. The vault has never been robbed, not once. Not an attempt that came anywhere close to succeeding. Not even a credible threat that made it past the perimeter. In the entire history of the facility, no unauthorized person has ever been inside that vault. And when you understand the layering of the security systems, the military presence, the physical construction, and the legal framework around it, that fact becomes entirely believable. Fort Knox also stored more than gold during its history. During World War II, the original copy of the Magna Carta was stored there. So was the Declaration of Independence. So was the U.S. Constitution. The gold was moved there in the first place because the government needed a location that could survive a foreign attack on American soil, something that had become a real concern after Pearl Harbor. Fort Knox was chosen because it was inland, because it was already a military installation, and because it could be defended. The mountain that eats governments. Cheyenne Mountain Complex. If Fort Knox is the vault that guards America's wealth, then Cheyenne Mountain is the vault that guards America's survival. And the scale of what was built inside that mountain, and the reason it was built there, is one of the most extraordinary engineering and strategic stories of the 20th century. Cheyenne Mountain is located near Colorado Springs, Colorado. From the outside, it looks like what it is, a mountain. Rocky, imposing, permanent. But beginning in the late 1950s and completing construction in 1966, the United States military carved out the interior of that mountain and built a city inside it. A city designed to survive a nuclear strike. The facility is home to what was originally called NORAD, the North American Aerospace Defense Command. It is the nerve center for detecting and responding to any aerospace threat against the North American continent. Ballistic missiles, aircraft, satellites, space debris. If it is flying toward North America and it should not be there, Cheyenne Mountain knows about it before anyone else. The construction involved removing approximately 700,000 tons of granite from inside the mountain. The resulting space was then fitted with 15 freestanding steel buildings, not buildings attached to the mountain walls. Freestanding, sitting on massive steel springs. The springs are designed to absorb the shockwave from a nuclear detonation. If a nuclear weapon exploded nearby, the mountain itself would absorb the initial blast, the rock would take the pressure, and the springs would prevent the shockwave from destroying the buildings inside. Each spring is approximately 3 feet in diameter. There are over 1,000 of them. The buildings they support contain blast valves on every opening, massive steel doors that can withstand pressure waves, independent water supply from underground springs, independent power generation, independent air filtration that can seal completely against biological and chemical contamination. The facility can sustain its personnel for extended periods without any contact with the outside world. The people who work inside Cheyenne Mountain go through security screening that begins months before they ever step into that tunnel. Background investigations, psychological evaluations, continuous monitoring. The access tunnel itself is approximately 1/3 of a mile long, carved through solid granite, and lined with blast doors that could stop anything short of a direct nuclear hit. The doors are described as being able to withstand pressures in the range of thousands of pounds per square inch. Inside, the operations center looks like something from a science fiction film, except it has been real and operational since 1966. Massive screens displaying global aerospace activity, consoles tracking hundreds of simultaneous contacts, officers trained to distinguish a flock of geese on radar from an incoming warhead. Because that distinction, made in the right amount of time, is the difference between a survivable situation and a catastrophic one. After September 11, 2001, NORAD operations were partially shifted to Peterson Air Force Base to allow for more flexible staffing, but Cheyenne Mountain remains fully operational as an alternate command center. In fact, the mountain was recently upgraded with hundreds of millions of dollars in improvements specifically to address the threat of electromagnetic pulse weapons, which can disable conventional electronics. The hardened granite and the steel shell inside the mountain provide a level of EMP protection that no above-ground facility can match. No civilian has ever been inside the operational areas of Cheyenne Mountain without an extremely specific and carefully reviewed authorization. Journalists who have been granted limited access have described the experience of entering that tunnel as viscerally disorienting. The sound changes, the air changes, the weight of the rock above you becomes something you feel, without being able to explain it. And then the blast doors close behind you, and you are inside a place that was built to outlast everything. The nuclear arsenal. B-61 storage vaults. Let us talk about the vaults that hold the most destructive objects ever created by human beings. Because they exist. They are real. They are currently operational. And the security around them is built on a philosophy that has no margin for error. The United States stores nuclear weapons at a number of locations, both domestic and overseas. The specific locations of active weapons storage are classified, but several have been confirmed through a combination of official statements, accidental disclosures, and investigative reporting over the decades. What we know about the security infrastructure around these weapons describes a system of layered protection that starts well before you ever reach the actual device. The weapons themselves are stored in what are called Weapons Storage and Security Systems, or WS3. These are hardened underground vaults built into the floors of aircraft shelters at air bases. The vaults are designed to withstand both conventional attack and nuclear effects in their immediate environment. They are accessed through a combination of electronic authentication, biometric verification, and physical key systems that require multiple authorized individuals acting simultaneously. The vaults themselves are monitored continuously by sensors that detect unauthorized opening, any tampering with the exterior, any physical impact, any change in the environmental conditions inside the vault. If any of those sensors is triggered, the response is immediate and overwhelming. Armed security forces, designated as nuclear security forces, are staged nearby, specifically to respond to any incident at a weapons storage location. Their response time is measured in seconds, not minutes. Their rules of engagement in a nuclear security emergency are among the most permissive in any military context on the planet. Above the vaults, the aircraft shelters they are built into appear from the outside to be ordinary reinforced hangars. This is intentional. The weapons exist below ground level, inside structures that do not announce their contents. The security personnel monitoring the area are not dressed in a way that draws attention. The perimeter security is real, but not always visible. This is a deliberate security philosophy. Visible security attracts attention and confirms the presence of high-value assets. Layered, invisible security achieves protection without confirmation. The weapons themselves contain multiple independent safety systems. Permissive action links, or PALs, are electronic locks built into every nuclear weapon in the American arsenal. They require authenticated authorization codes entered in a specific sequence before the weapon can be armed. These codes come through the Nuclear Command and Control System, which runs from the President of the United States through the Secretary of Defense and down through the military chain to the operator level. Without the proper codes, the weapon is inert. It cannot be detonated. And the codes themselves are protected at every step of that chain by security measures that are themselves classified. Even if someone somehow obtained a nuclear weapon physically, which would require breaching multiple layers of the most sophisticated security systems on Earth, they would still be holding an object they could not use. The Permissive Action Link system was specifically designed to make nuclear weapons useless to anyone who is not authorized to use them. It is one of the most important and least discussed security achievements of the Cold War era. The Underground Command, Site R. There is a facility that most Americans have never heard of. It is known as Site R. Its official designation is the Raven Rock Mountain Complex, and it is located in Pennsylvania near the Maryland border, approximately 75 miles from Washington, D.C. It is sometimes called the Underground Pentagon, and that description, while informal, is not entirely inaccurate. Raven Rock was built beginning in 1948, during the early years of the Cold War, when American planners began seriously considering what would happen if Washington, D.C. was destroyed in a nuclear strike. The answer they arrived at was that the government needed to be able to continue functioning. That meant creating an alternate location where military command and control could be re-established and sustained. The facility was carved out of a granite mountain, much like Cheyenne Mountain but on the East Coast. It contains multiple buildings inside the mountain, power generation capability, water supply, communications infrastructure, and enough space to house hundreds of personnel for an extended period. It is designed to survive the electromagnetic pulse effects of a nuclear explosion. It is hardened against blast. It is connected to other classified facilities through secure communications links that are themselves hardened and redundant. Site R serves as an alternate site for the Secretary of Defense and the Joint Chiefs of Staff in a continuity of government scenario. What that means in plain terms is that if Washington is destroyed, the military chain of command does not end. It continues from inside that mountain in Pennsylvania. Vice President Dick Cheney spent significant time at Raven Rock in the days immediately following September 11, 2001, as part of the government's continuity protocols. That fact, confirmed by multiple sources, gives you a sense of how seriously these facilities are taken, even in situations short of nuclear war. The security at Raven Rock follows the same pattern as Cheyenne Mountain. Military personnel, multiple perimeter layers, hardened access points, classified sensor systems, no civilian access without authorization that flows from the highest levels of government. The surrounding area is government property, with restricted airspace above it. There are no public tours. There is no visitor center. The mountain does not announce itself. If you drove past the access road without knowing what you were looking for, you would have no idea what was buried beneath the rock above you. The vault under Washington. The Congressional Bunker. For decades, the United States government maintained a secret emergency relocation facility for the United States Congress. It was hidden inside a luxury resort in the mountains of West Virginia. The Greenbrier Resort in White Sulphur Springs has been hosting American presidents and dignitaries since the 19th century. Beneath it, constructed secretly beginning in 1958 and completed in 1961, was a fully operational congressional bunker capable of housing all 535 members of Congress plus support staff. The facility was built during the construction of a new resort wing that gave the government a legitimate reason to bring in construction materials and workers. The bunker was disguised as a broadcast facility for a television company called Forsyth Associates, which was actually a front company providing cover for the facility's operations. For decades, the workers at the Greenbrier who maintained the bunker signed secrecy agreements. The staff of the resort knew something unusual was in the basement. They did not ask questions. The facility contained a hospital, a decontamination chamber, a power plant, a water supply, a communications center, dormitories for congressional members, and a large meeting chamber where both the House and the Senate could convene simultaneously. It was stocked with food, medicine, and supplies sufficient for an extended stay. Its purpose was explicit. If nuclear war came, Congress would go to the Greenbrier. The government would continue to function. The secret held for 30 years. In 1992, a journalist named Ted Gupp published an article in the Washington Post revealing the existence of the bunker. The government declined to comment. Within a short time of the revelation, the facility was decommissioned. The logic was straightforward. A secret emergency shelter is only useful if it is secret. Once the location is public knowledge, an adversary can target it. The element of protection is gone. The Greenbrier today maintains the former bunker as a historical exhibit. You can tour it now. Which, in a strange way, illustrates one of the fundamental principles of military security. What is shown to the public is always what is no longer relevant. The real facilities, the ones that matter right now, are not on any map that you can access. The nuclear command and control, the vault that moves. There is a vault that does not sit inside a mountain or behind a 20-ton door. It moves, continuously, at 30,000 feet. The E-4B Nightwatch aircraft, known informally as the Doomsday Plane, is a modified Boeing 747 that carries the most sensitive command and control systems in the American nuclear arsenal. It is the airborne equivalent of a nuclear vault, and it represents one of the most extraordinary applications of security philosophy ever put into practice. The United States maintains 4 E-4B aircraft, operated by the Air Force out of Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska. At any given time, at least one of these aircraft is on alert status, meaning it can be airborne within minutes of any emergency declaration. The aircraft can stay airborne for days using aerial refueling. The longest recorded flight was over 72 hours. The interior of the E-4B contains a command suite from which the President of the United States, the Secretary of Defense, or the National Command Authority can direct nuclear operations anywhere on the planet. It has hardened communication systems that can survive the electromagnetic pulse effects of a nuclear detonation. It can communicate via very low-frequency radio with submerged nuclear submarines anywhere in the world. It carries a trailing wire antenna that can be deployed at altitude to reach submarines at depth. The aircraft itself is armored. The communications equipment is shielded. The crew is trained specifically for the mission of nuclear command and control under the most extreme imaginable circumstances. The people aboard that aircraft when it is airborne represent the continuity of the most consequential decision-making authority on Earth. No civilian has ever been inside the operational sections of an E-4B in flight. The aircraft are shown publicly at air shows in their external form only. What happens inside, how the systems work, what the command protocols look like in practice, is among the most closely held operational knowledge in the American military. The submarine nuclear vaults, undetectable and unreachable. Let us go somewhere even harder to reach, below the surface of the ocean, because some of the most secure nuclear vaults on the planet are not on land at all. They are on Ohio-class ballistic missile submarines, and they are sitting somewhere in the deep ocean right now, and there is essentially nothing any adversary can do about it. The United States operates 14 Ohio-class submarines in the nuclear ballistic missile role. Each of these submarines carries up to 20 Trident II D5 ballistic missiles. Each missile can carry multiple independently targeted nuclear warheads. The range of the Trident II D5 is over 7,000 miles, which means these submarines can strike targets on the other side of the planet from their current position. The critical element from a security standpoint is not just what these submarines carry, it is where they are. At any given moment, the location of an Ohio-class submarine on deterrent patrol is known only to a small number of people within the U.S. Navy and the National Command Authority. The submarines operate under strict communication silence protocols. They do not broadcast their position. They do not respond to general communications. They receive instructions through specific channels at specific times. They are, for practical purposes, invisible. The vaults aboard these submarines that store the warheads and the missiles are subject to the same permissive action link systems as land-based weapons. Multiple authorization layers, environmental sensors, continuous monitoring by crew members who are themselves among the most thoroughly vetted individuals in any military on Earth. The crews of Ohio-class submarines go through security screening that rivals anything applied to intelligence community personnel. Getting physically near an Ohio-class submarine without authorization is essentially impossible. The bases where they operate, Kings Bay in Georgia and Bangor in Washington, are naval submarine bases with perimeter security, waterside patrol, and security protocols that begin well beyond the visible fence line. The submarines themselves, when in port, are guarded around the clock by Naval Security Force personnel with rules of engagement that are not subject to negotiation. And when they are at sea, there is no fence. There is just the ocean, thousands of feet of cold, dark water. And somewhere in that water, a vault that carries enough destructive capability to end civilization as we know it, protected by the single most effective security system ever devised by military planners: invisibility. You cannot attack what you cannot find. The Intelligence Archives, the Vault of Secrets. Not all the most secure vaults in the world contain weapons or gold. Some contain information. And in the modern world, information may be the most valuable and the most dangerous asset of all. The National Security Agency at Fort Meade, Maryland, is one of the most secretive organizations in the American government. Its budget is classified. Its workforce numbers are classified. The full extent of its capabilities has never been publicly disclosed. What has been revealed over the years, through a combination of leaks, congressional testimony, and investigative reporting, suggests an organization of extraordinary scale and technical sophistication. The physical facility at Fort Meade encompasses millions of square feet of space, including one of the largest collections of computer processing power in the world. The servers and storage systems inside NSA facilities contain surveillance data, intelligence intercepts, cryptographic systems, and analytical products that represent decades of intelligence gathering. The vaults that protect this information are not just physical structures. They are layered digital and physical security systems of remarkable complexity. Access to NSA facilities begins with clearance at the TSI level, meaning top-secret sensitive compartmented information. This clearance requires a background investigation that typically takes 1 to 2 years to complete. It examines every aspect of a person's life going back to childhood: financial history, foreign contacts, travel history, psychological evaluations, polygraph examinations, multiple polygraph examinations over the course of a career. Even with that clearance, access inside NSA facilities is compartmented. That means having a clearance to work on one program does not give you access to another program. You can be a senior analyst with decades of service and not know what the person at the next building is working on. Each compartment has its own access control, its own documentation requirements, its own oversight structure. The physical access controls at NSA include biometric systems, man-trap entry points where you are enclosed between 2 sets of doors and both your entry credentials and your identity are verified before the second door will open, continuous video surveillance, and armed security personnel. Personal electronic devices are prohibited in classified areas. The consequence of bringing an unauthorized device into a classified space is career-ending and potentially criminal. The data stored inside those facilities has never been fully inventoried by any public body. The Church Committee hearings in the 1970s gave Congress a glimpse of what intelligence agencies had collected over the decades, and what they found was disturbing enough to produce significant reform legislation. What has been collected in the decades since, with vastly more capable technical tools, is a question that has no public answer. The continuity of government vaults. What survives everything? There is a network of facilities spread across the United States, some well-known, most entirely classified, that exist for a single purpose: to ensure that the American government continues to function after any conceivable catastrophe: nuclear war, biological attack, pandemic combined with infrastructure collapse, any scenario in which the normal functions of government are disrupted or destroyed. This network is called the Continuity of Government Program, and it is one of the most extensively planned and least publicly understood aspects of American national security. The facilities in this network include hardened command centers, secure communications nodes, alternate seat of government locations, and supply caches. They are staffed by personnel who train continuously for scenarios they hope never occur. The existence of some of these facilities has been confirmed. Site R at Raven Rock is one. The Mount Weather Emergency Operations Center in Virginia is another. Mount Weather is a facility operated by FEMA and located in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. It is a full underground city carved into the mountain, containing offices, dormitories, communications equipment, power generation, water supply, and enough infrastructure to serve as an alternate seat of government for an extended period. Mount Weather has been used in real emergencies. After September 11th, senior members of Congress and cabinet officials were moved to Mount Weather as a precautionary measure. The facility is not theoretical, it is operational, it is maintained, it is ready. The security around Mount Weather reflects its importance. The facility is officially operated as a federal emergency management facility, which provides cover for the significant military and law enforcement presence around it. The surrounding land is federal property with restricted access. The airspace above it is restricted. There are no tours. There is no public information about the current interior configuration or the current operational status. What goes into the classified budget for facilities like Mount Weather, Site R, and their counterparts across the country is not available for public review. The entire Continuity of Government program operates on appropriations that are not publicly itemized. The oversight is conducted by small groups of cleared congressional members who cannot discuss what they learn in classified briefings. The program is funded and sustained year after year without the American public having any detailed knowledge of its scope. The vault at the end of the world, the Arctic nuclear storage. There are vaults in the American military system that are specifically designed to function in conditions where everything else has failed: extreme cold, radiation contamination, total communications blackout. These facilities exist because military planners have spent decades thinking through scenarios that most people prefer not to consider. One such category of facility is the nuclear weapons storage sites that were maintained during the Cold War in extremely remote and environmentally challenging locations, designed to ensure that the ability to respond with nuclear weapons survived even a comprehensive first strike. Some of these sites were in the Arctic. Some were in locations that have never been publicly confirmed. Some involved pre-positioned weapons aboard vessels or aircraft that could be held on continuous alert without returning to a fixed base. The philosophy behind these extreme remote vaults was the same philosophy behind the submarine fleet. If the adversary knows exactly where your weapons are, they can attempt to destroy them in a first strike. If some of those weapons are in locations that are extraordinarily difficult to reach, either physically or informationally, the deterrent calculation changes. You cannot eliminate a weapon's capability you cannot locate, and if you cannot eliminate it in a first strike, you cannot win a nuclear exchange, which means you cannot rationally start one. This is the logic of deterrence. And the vaults, the hidden ones, the moving ones, the ones buried under mountains and sitting on springs in the dark, are its physical expression. They exist not to be used, but to make use unnecessary. The most secure vaults on the planet are secure because their security makes war a calculation that no rational actor can win. What the guards know, the human element of vault security. Here is something that does not get talked about enough when people discuss military security facilities. The most sophisticated physical and electronic security system in the world is only as strong as the humans operating it. And the men and women who serve as security forces at these installations are among the most carefully selected, most rigorously trained, and most continuously evaluated personnel in any military on the planet. Personnel who guard nuclear weapons, for example, undergo what is called the Personnel Reliability Program. The PRP is a continuous evaluation process, not a one-time check. A guard on the PRP is evaluated constantly. Supervisors watch for signs of financial stress, relationship problems, substance use, changes in behavior, changes in attitude. A person showing any indicator of potential unreliability is removed from the program immediately, not eventually, immediately. The stakes are too high for any other response. The training for nuclear security forces is conducted at specific facilities and involves scenarios that go well beyond what conventional security training covers. These include insider threat scenarios, where the threat is not an outsider attempting to breach the perimeter, but a member of the team whose loyalty has been compromised. The response to an insider threat in a nuclear security context is among the most carefully planned and most seriously rehearsed of any military contingency. The guards themselves are armed with weapons appropriate to the specific threat environment. At some locations, that means weapons with capabilities well beyond what standard law enforcement carries. The authorization to use lethal force in a nuclear security scenario is broad. The protocols are clear, the training is continuous. And beyond the physical guards, there are the technical security systems monitoring everything they do. Guards at high security facilities are themselves monitored. Their access is logged. Their actions are recorded. The system is designed to catch not just external threats, but internal ones. Because history has shown that the most serious breaches of sensitive facilities often come from within. The access vault, biometrics and what comes after them. Security technology has advanced dramatically from the days of a padlock and a guard with a key. The access control systems at the most sensitive military vaults in the world represent the leading edge of security technology, and in many cases, they are systems that do not exist in any commercial application because they have been specifically developed for classified military use. The most public layer of this technology is biometric access control, fingerprint readers, retinal scanners, facial recognition systems. These are the visible surface of a much deeper security architecture. At a classified military facility, a biometric scan does not just confirm your identity. It checks your current status in the access control system, which is updated in real time. If your clearance was suspended this morning because of something that happened in your personal life last night, the scanner knows. The door does not open. Below the biometric layer are behavioral analytics systems that monitor access patterns over time. If you typically enter a specific vault at 9 in the morning on weekdays, and you suddenly attempt to access it at 3 in the morning on a Saturday, the system flags the anomaly before the door is ever attempted. Security personnel are alerted. The access attempt is reviewed. The most advanced facilities use what security professionals call defense in depth, which means that no single system is trusted to be the last line of defense. Every layer assumes that the layer before it has been compromised. Every checkpoint is designed as if all the previous checkpoints failed. The result is a security architecture where compromising one element, even successfully, still leaves multiple independent barriers between an intruder and the protected asset. At the highest security vaults, the final approach to the protected space typically involves a man-trap configuration, where you are physically enclosed between barriers while your identity and authorization are confirmed from multiple independent systems simultaneously. If any of those systems raises a question, you stay enclosed until security personnel respond. You do not get to explain yourself at the door. You wait. What history tells us about vault failures? Here is a truth that military security planners have always understood, even when it was uncomfortable. No system is perfectly secure. History provides examples of security failures even at high-value military facilities, and those failures have driven improvements that have made today's vaults significantly harder to breach than anything that existed before. During the Cold War, the United States experienced a number of incidents involving nuclear weapons that were never intended to be public knowledge, but became public through declassification and investigative journalism. Aircraft crashes involving nuclear weapons. An incident in which a nuclear weapon was lost in the ocean off the coast of Palomares, Spain, after a mid-air collision. Accidents at storage facilities that came uncomfortably close to unintended detonation. Each of these incidents drove changes. New safety systems were mandated. New protocols were established. The permissive action link technology that today makes it impossible to detonate an American nuclear weapon without proper authorization was developed partly in response to the realization that the existing safety systems were inadequate for the real-world operational conditions that weapons encountered. The lesson is not that military security is weak. The lesson is that security is a process, not a destination. Every failure reveals a vulnerability. Every vulnerability, once identified, is addressed. The vaults that exist today are the product of decades of learning from incidents that the people responsible for security never want to see happen again. And there is a deeper lesson here. The most dangerous moment in the security of any vault is not when the vault is new and everyone is paying close attention. It is when the vault has been secure for so long that people begin to believe it will always be secure on its own. Complacency is the adversary that no fence can stop. The best security organizations understand this and build continuous challenge and review into their culture, not just their procedures. The foreign equivalents, vaults you will never see. The United States is not the only country building impenetrable vaults. Russia maintains a network of hardened command and control facilities that in some respects rivals or exceeds the American system. The Russian system of bunkers and underground facilities, known internally as the continuity of state system, includes facilities beneath Moscow that are described by those who have studied them as being comparable in scope to a major underground city. The Yamantau mountain complex in the Ural Mountains of Russia has been a subject of significant interest to American intelligence for decades. The facility, which the Russian government has never officially characterized, involves extensive underground construction that began during the Soviet era and continued well into the post-Soviet period. Congressional hearings in the 1990s included testimony from defense officials who expressed concern about the purpose and scale of the facility without being able to provide definitive answers. Russia also maintains the Dead Hand System, officially known as Perimeter, which is an automated nuclear launch system designed to ensure that a retaliatory nuclear strike can be executed even if the entire chain of command has been eliminated in a first strike. The system's control infrastructure is housed in hardened facilities that are specifically designed to survive the destruction of everything around them. The vaults that hold the keys to Dead Hand represent perhaps the most sobering example of what military security infrastructure looks like when the scenario being planned for is the end of organized civilization. China has invested enormously in underground military infrastructure over the past 3 decades. The People's Liberation Army's 2nd Artillery Corps, responsible for China's nuclear missile forces, maintains an extensive network of tunnels and underground facilities that intelligence analysts have estimated extends for thousands of miles beneath Chinese territory. The facilities include launch sites, command centers, weapon storage areas, and maintenance facilities, all buried deep enough to survive conventional attack and hardened against nuclear effects. The United Kingdom, France, and other nuclear powers maintain their own versions of these secure facilities, each reflecting the security philosophy and technical capability of the state operating them. What they have in common is the recognition that the weapons and systems they protect are too consequential to be left vulnerable to any threat that can be anticipated and defended against. The psychological dimension of vault security. Here is something that most discussions of military vaults completely overlook: the psychological dimension. Because the security of these facilities is not just a matter of physical barriers and electronic systems, it is also a matter of the human psychology of everyone who works within them. The people who design and operate the most secure military vaults understand that the most sophisticated fence in the world cannot stop a determined insider who has decided to betray their trust. Robert Hanssen, the FBI agent who spied for the Soviet Union for decades, operated inside one of the most security-conscious organizations in the American government. Aldrich Ames, the CIA officer who compromised numerous intelligence assets, had been through multiple security evaluations before his treachery was discovered. These cases drove fundamental changes in how the intelligence and security communities think about insider threats. The result has been the development of what security professionals call a security culture, a shared set of attitudes, behaviors, and expectations that makes security not just a set of rules to be followed, but a genuine value held by the people in the organization. In the most secure military facilities, security is not something that is done to you by the system around you. It is something you participate in actively, continuously, as a matter of professional identity and personal commitment. This means reporting anomalous behavior in colleagues. It means flagging personal vulnerabilities before they become security risks. It means accepting continuous monitoring and evaluation as a reasonable price of access to the most sensitive material. It means understanding that the information and assets you are protecting are genuinely important enough to justify the strictness of the environment in which you work. The psychological screening for personnel at the highest security facilities reflects this understanding. It is not just looking for disqualifying factors in a person's past. It is evaluating whether a person has the psychological profile to sustain secure behavior under pressure, over time, without supervision at every moment. Because ultimately, in the dark spaces of a classified vault, the last line of security is the conscience of the person standing in it. The architecture of impossibility, what makes a vault truly secure. Let us bring it all together. Because when you look at everything we have covered today, from Fort Knox to Cheyenne Mountain, from Ohio-class submarines to the E-4B aircraft, from the NSA's digital vaults to the physical continuity of government facilities, a pattern emerges, and that pattern tells you what it actually means to make something secure at the highest level. True security at the military vault level is not any single thing. It is not a thick enough wall. It is not a large enough guard force. It is not a sophisticated enough electronic system. It is all of those things working together in a way where each layer compensates for the potential failure of the others. Defense in depth, redundancy, continuous evaluation, human factors integrated with technical systems. True security also means thinking like the adversary. The people who design these facilities do not think about what they would need to stop a casual intruder. They think about what the most sophisticated, most well-resourced, most determined adversary on the planet might attempt. And they design against that, which means the security measures that protect these vaults are calibrated not to the average threat, but to the worst conceivable one. True security means accepting that the threat evolves and the defense must evolve with it. The vaults that exist today are different from the vaults that existed during the Cold War, not just in size and technology, but in fundamental design philosophy, because the threat environment has changed. Cyber threats, drone technology, insider threat sophistication. The security architecture responds to all of it, continuously. And true security means accepting certain costs that are invisible to the public. The budget required to maintain these facilities is significant. The workforce required to staff them is significant. The restrictions on individual freedom required to keep them secure, from personnel monitoring to lifestyle limitations, are significant. These costs are accepted because the people who make these decisions have concluded that what is being protected is worth the price, what we will never know. Here is the honest truth that sits at the center of everything we have covered today. The vaults we know about are not necessarily the most important ones. The facilities that have been partially revealed through declassification, through leaks, through investigative journalism, are by definition the ones where the secret has been partially compromised. The truly critical facilities, the ones that matter most to current operational capability, are not in any document you can access. There are military facilities in the United States and around the world that have no public identity at all, no name, no location that has ever been confirmed in any public source, no workforce numbers, no budget line that can be identified. These facilities exist inside the classified world with a completeness that makes the partial secrecy of places like Cheyenne Mountain look transparent by comparison. What goes on inside those facilities? What is stored in the vaults beneath what mountains, inside what secure rooms in what parts of the world? The answer is genuinely unknown. Not just unknown to the public, but unknown to most of the people who hold security clearances, unknown to most members of Congress, and known in full detail to only a handful of individuals at any given time. That is the ultimate expression of military vault security. Not just that you cannot get in, not just that you cannot see what is inside, but that you cannot even confirm with certainty that the facility exists. The most secure vault on Earth is the one you do not know to look for. And that, more than any blast door, more than any spring-mounted building inside a granite mountain, more than any 20-ton vault door in Fort Knox, is the defining characteristic of security at the level we have been discussing today. The protection is not just physical. It is informational, it is psychological, it is architectural, it is human, it is legal, it is technological, it is historical, it is layered and continuous and self-reinforcing, and it is designed by people who have spent their careers thinking about nothing else. The weight of what is kept. The men and women who stand guard over these places, who work inside them, who design and maintain them, carry a weight that most people will never understand. Not because the job is physically demanding, though in many cases it is, but because they know what they are protecting, they know why it matters, they understand, in a way that requires clearance and briefings and years of